This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and today is my special guest. We have a former WWE wrestler turned into a successful actor, Kurrgan, who was also known as the Interrogator, lots of other names, and his real name is Robert Mallet. Am I pronouncing that right?
Very close. It's Maya, but it's pretty close. I'll give you an A.
Mayette. So you are French for those that have only seen you in WWE because you didn't talk very much. You were born in Ontario, I understand.
I was born in Ontario just for a few months. My parents are from the Maritimes and from the East Coast, but they were there to work in Ontario back in the 60s, near Toronto, Mississauga area. But I was born in Georgetown, Ontario. And then they moved after I was born. They moved back home, back to the East Coast to be closer to the family. So I grew up in Maritimes ever since. My birth certificate is the only evidence of I was born in Ontario. But I'm a Maritimer. So. But I am French. Yes, I am. My first language is French, Acadian French from New Brunswick.
How are things in New Brunswick right now? Ontario, we're still on lockdown here. I know that you can't cross provincial borders, but have things opened up there to the point where the gyms are open?
You know what? For over the year since the whole thing started, New Brunswick's been doing very good because we're a smaller province, smaller population, mostly rural area, and we've been doing good in cases. You got flare-ups over there, some outbreaks and stuff from nursing homes. Especially the worst part was had to turn red. The lockdown was in the Edmundston area, near the border of Quebec, over the winter. And but throughout the province, really, we've been doing good, and we've been in the yellow phase, which means gyms are open, restaurants are open, where you can dine in and. So pretty much it's kind of a world normalcy, but it's different. You gotta follow restrictions and stuff, and wear a mask and all that, which we still do. But for a small province, we're doing very good. Nova Scotia had a huge outbreak there a few months ago. But you're right. Borders are closed, and only for essential workers, of course, they can go through. But I think the idea is they're going to open back the Atlantic bubble again, like they did last summer. They kind of derailed over the winter because of the second wave. But they're going to open it up again this summer, hopefully, so people can travel. And but yeah, we're doing all right. For me, it has affected. In a way, it did affect my decisions of what to do. For my career or my job, anyways, because of COVID, I had to created a lot of uncertainty for me, especially in the acting things, my career. Because of the first shutdown, everything was shut down, and trying to figure out what to do. Either wait it out, find a part-time job, which I did before in the past, but I wasn't really looking forward to going, fall back behind to take a part-time job. Because I was doing all right in acting. I was getting some interesting gigs. Not as busy as I wanted to be. I wanted to go to LA and find some contacts and spread out. But then COVID hit, and it's there's kind of a wall in front of me. And I'm trying to figure out what to do. And but the opportunity, I wanted to go back to school. I have a second. Not a job, not like a part-time job or a 9-to-5 job, but mostly a career, a second career. And so I enrolled back in college to take be a correctional officer. And I wanted to do it for the last 5-6 years. It was in my head for a while. And then the opportunity was great last year. COVID, nothing was going on, and the government was giving out student loans. It was a good opportunity. It was either to try, to enroll myself or don't do it at all. I'm not 20 years old, so I had to do it now or not, And so after 30 years being out of high school, decided to give it a try, and so I've been busy throughout the winter. I've been busy going to college. So
Interesting.
it's great. But it's great. It's not like I did terribly in high school. Flunked twice. I was procrastinating. I was very poorly. But in the college, it's a different thing because I had the life experience over the years since high school, of course, and I learned and seen a lot, and I did a lot, and so I think a little bit more mature in my decisions. And then the world of corrections is fascinating, and I learned so much over the year while I've been taught, in school. I learned a lot more than I thought I knew. It's a very interesting world. It's a difficult job. It's not for everybody, but for me. But I had a lot of support from my instructors who were all former correctional officers, and I think I would be very good. Be the temperament to do the job. It's like being a bouncer at a bar, which I did years ago. It's kind of the same thing, but different level, of course. They're not dealing with patrons in the bar; you're dealing mostly with inmates. But it's the same idea. But yeah, I'm looking forward to delving into that world. I'm not giving up acting. It's just it changes priorities. I just needed something with more stability. Acting wasn't stable, especially the last year or so for me. And I'm happy I decided to go because I would have wasted another year of just waiting around, looking at my phone, and waiting for the next audition, which is not fun. But yeah, that's where I am right now. So there you go.
At what point in time did you realize that you were bigger than everybody else?
Very early on. I mean, since I was 5 or 6, I know I was always with my dad, traveling with my dad. He was driving to the garage or stores, whatever, and I always was with my dad. And I remember he was praising me. He's only 5 years old. Because I was taller than a 5-year-old. Obviously, I was always double the size of any kid my age at the time. And so I knew I was different from that. And then from going to school, how I was treated, because I did stick out in my class, and probably teased that because of that. Not, I guess some sort of bullying, but very light level. It didn't really scar me for the rest of my life because of that. But I noticed early on I was very different. But it made me a little more, I think, I don't know, a bit more timid, more shy, because I was very conscious about being in public at the time. That people were staring at me and looking at me because I looked different, taller. So I think one of the reasons why maybe I was being a wrestler kind of attracted to me because I've seen big guys, great shape and very confident to be in a ring in front of thousands of people. I thought that's impressive. That they're not shy to be, not afraid to be in front of a big crowd. And that kind of attracted me to that. And it helped me big time, spending years and being on the road, being a wrestler, and it helped me to be an actor. And being in front of people acting and being a character, I probably wouldn't do it when I was 10 years old. So I mean, doing that helped a lot to have confidence in me, be comfortable in the environment.
I don't know how popular football is in New Brunswick, but it seems like a football coach, you would have been a dream for them, or a basketball coach. Did you ever play any high school sports or anything like that?
Well, my high school, this is was mostly pushing hockey a lot. Hockey was the priority, and I tried hockey. I was very clumsy. I couldn't skate. I could skate, but I couldn't. Very, very awkward. Uh, and hockey wasn't my thing. I went to a hockey clinic. I think my dad brought me there, and I was almost crying. I didn't want to be there. Uh, in high school, not my high school, no football. No football team. And what else? Uh, No, even basketball, of course. No basketball team. But I played some handball in the junior school. It was fun, being with the gang, my friends, and traveling to tournaments and stuff. But in high school though was I found volleyball. So I was part of the volleyball team, and I was pretty good blocker. I could block. I would intimidate the other team. I was right in front of the net, and I used to scare them. Even years later, I would see those people I played against. They would remember me to playing against me, which I had no idea who they were, but they would remember me because I did. I was a freaking giant in that team. I wasn't really good, great player. I did win the Rookie of the Year one year, but for me it was kind of a prelude of my wrestling days, I suppose, being on the road, being with the boys. And that was fun. I remember that. That was fun, being in volleyball tournaments, and that was kind of, I love that. And of course, being in wrestling, you mostly drive everywhere with the boys, so I like that experience. But volleyball, that was, I mean, if they had a football team or a basketball team, for sure, I would have tried it. But it wasn't my sports. I didn't understand football at the time. Maybe I still don't. It's not really my sport now. I do like baseball. I watch baseball a lot. But I would have tried it, but maybe I would have hurt myself and maybe wouldn't pursue a wrestling career. I don't know. Who knows?
What what wrestling did you grow up on? Was it more WWE, or was it Atlantic Grand Prix wrestling, or was it Lutte International from Montreal?
But it was Atlantic Grand Prix wrestling. That was, and that's the first time I really saw pro wrestling. That was kind of, I thought it was very cool, very excited. I don't know how old I was. I think I was 8 years old. And it was on TV every Saturday. And that was pretty exciting. The characters they had, the Cuban Assassin, Leo Burke, and Stephen Pettifall, and the Rip Malumba. So, it was pretty exciting to watch, and then I had an opportunity to go see live shows in the area, in my hometown, with my dad. And at the time, it was crazy. Business was great. It was sold out in a small arena. Very exciting to watch. But when it really got in my head, though, to become a pro wrestler, it kind of started is when I first saw the WWF in '86. Maybe before WrestleMania 3, when Hogan, of course, was on top, Macho Man, Andre, all the golden age of wrestling back in the '80s, and that blew me away. It was like, I was so used to watching Grand Prix wrestling, small arenas and stuff, and then you saw the big time wrestling. It was like, my God, what's this? I never heard of this before. I've never seen this before. It held my imagination, that's for sure. I was, ever since when I first started watching it, I was, I wanted to know more about it. I wanted, every weekend I was stuck to the TV watching it, what was new, what was the new storyline or new wrestlers, but they're very exciting, and then I convinced myself I wanted to be one, or my friends were encouraging me because I did look different, and I knew at the time it was big guys had more chance of, or giants, more chance of making it as a wrestler. So I knew I had a good chance to at least get into it, but yeah, that's the Grand Prix wrestling was my wrestling for sure.
Were you trained through Grand Prix wrestling, or did you find another way to get trained for actual competing in the sport?
I was trained. Yeah, I was. First I wanted to be trained for sure. I didn't know where to go. Showing my age, but there's no internet at the time. There's no way to access where, contacts or places or websites where to get trained. Maritimes, they didn't have a wrestling school at the time in the late '80s. So yeah, I mean, I knew they had some in Ontario in the U.S., but of course I couldn't afford to go there. So it was, but then I heard, I went to Emile Dupre's house, which is the promoter of Grand Prix Wrestling in Shediac, and I went to his front door. He was impressed that he was tall, but I think he wanted me to fill up a bit, the muscles, hit the gym, and so it didn't go any, kind of discouraged. Didn't hire me right away. So, but still, he was still he liked what he saw. I was a giant, I guess. But I knew that Stephen Pettipaw, one of his Emile Dupre's wrestlers, was playing in my hometown, playing hockey during the winter. So this Stephen Pettipaw was a big name. It was called Big Stephen Pettipaw. It was a big name in the Maritimes. He was babyface. He wrestled all over the world, in Germany and Japan. And big guy, 6'4", 270. And he was playing hockey, and I thought, this is another opportunity to see if he can train me. So I went to see him during periods, and I went to the dressing room, and then he sized me up and said, "Oh, he was impressed, but didn't have time to train that winter because he was busy. He was too busy." But he kept me in mind. He got me. He called me 8 months later, back in July of 1990. He called me up, asked me if I was still interested in being trained, and I said, well, yes, right away, because I've been thinking about it for a long time, and being a pain in the ass to my friends and family, talking about it to death. So I thought this is my opportunity. So mostly it was a crash course in wrestling. It was like 4 weeks, 5 weeks of wrestling, of training to be a wrestler. Mostly lockups and taking a bump and headlocks, basic stuff you had to learn. Pettipaw was training me. They only needed 3 guys to finish the season. It was Grand Prix Wrestling was mostly in the summer season, and it was they usually finish around September before school starts. And they wanted 3 guys of the roster. They left for another territory, so they needed to replace them to finish the season. So they brought me in and 2 other guys from Moncton, and it was exciting. It was a great memory, a great experience to finally be trained by a professional wrestler, and to learn how all the basic stuff. And then finally, they were used. The two guys I was with, they started before me. They put it on TV tapings, and they were used all right away as jobbers. But I wasn't really looking forward to meet my debut as a jobber, But I understood that's how you pay your dues. But I wasn't looking forward to do that at first. But of course, because I looked different, I was kind of at the gimmick giant, so they brought me in as the giant, as an attraction. So they kind of put me up in the main event or close to the main event throughout that season. And my first match was with my hometown in Beauctouche, New Brunswick. This is 15 minutes away from here now, but it's my first match in front of my family, my friends. That was pretty nerve-wracking, but it was a tag team event. I was with my trainer, my mentor, Stephen, and against Timothy Flowers and Bulldog Bob Brown. So, and I gave them a lot of potatoes. I stepped them a few times. But very exciting. Rip Rogers came in, slapping the shit out of me, and I was so happy to show it off to my friends the next day, because that bled from the vicious chops he would give me. I didn't sell them at all, of course. I'm not supposed to sell. But I was so proud to show it off, all the hand marks on my chest to my friends, to see if it wasn't fake. Yeah. But it was a very exciting period. And then I started a little bit more training during the after seasons. Stephen wanted to take over Emile Dupre's. But Emile Dupre was retiring. He came back years later, of course, but Stephen wanted to continue and wanted to be a promoter, so we continued for the next two seasons, 2 summers, I guess, 2 years, and training more guys and get trained, get a little more experience, and yeah, that's how I got started in Maritimes. It was fun. A great way to learn, though, because we wrestled every day. We worked every day, 7 days a week, or 8 times a week. We used to do matinee shows and stuff during the day and wrestled at night. So we if you screw up, you can get better the next day. There's no videotape or no internet, so you didn't have to worry about what people were saying about you. You can improve. And you learn from opening your ears. Veterans like Leo Burke, those guys, Cuban Assassin, just listening to them, those veterans, and that's how I learned.
And I noticed that you had your first WWE match in 1991 in Utica, New York, and you were called the Cajun Giant. How did that match get set up for you? And what was the feedback? Because you seem like somebody that they would have jumped on right away, but ultimately it was another 6 years or so before you went on full time with them.
That's right. I think I got the call. It was 1991 in November. It was in the fall, 91. I think Leo Burke. Leo Burke is a legendary wrestler back in the Maritimes and influenced the Harts as well. Bret Hart, and he has a great mind for wrestling. And he knew agents. He has contacts in the WWF, and he mentioned me to them, to one of the agents. It could have been Pat Patterson. I'm not sure. I'm not positive. And so my name was mentioned to them, and I got the call from Leo. I think I got the call from Leo. I forget that they were interested in me. They wanted to fly me in for a tryout. Now, when I got that call, you think I would be excited, but I was, nervous and scared about that. Because I just finished the summer season. I was pretty wiped out. Didn't train that much because on the road you never had time to train. It was you don't eat well. I was kind of burnt out over the season. And I thought in my mind, probably I wouldn't be ready for that tryout. But again, I didn't say no to it. There was an opportunity. I couldn't say no. So I said, screw it. Yeah, sure. I'm all for it. So it's the first time I've been on the Narrowline on the plane, going on from Moncton to Toronto, and Toronto to Syracuse, New York, and then they would pick me up and drove me to pick me up in the van, drive me to Utica. And I remember when I flew in to Syracuse, we were waiting for another wrestler to get picked up. And it was Owen Hart. He came from Europe. He did a tour in Europe, and they were bringing him in. I think it was supposed to start with the new foundation with Anvil at the time. And that was very exciting. The first time I met Owen, we're kind of chatting a little bit in the van on the way up to Utica. And this, as well as my first time in the U.S. So it was like my mind was blowing. It was exciting, but it was kind of fish out of water. It was like, and I remember getting into the building backstage. It was over the big crowd at the time. It was a TV taping, and I remember just being backstage. Everybody was there that were on that roster at the time. Everybody, glimpses of wrestlers here. Just looking around, I saw Brett for the first time. I saw Rowdy Piper, and Ric Flair. All in this, it's just, my mind was blowing. The Undertaker impressed me a lot, and was very impressive. Thing had a Ribera jacket, which I always wanted. And then, it was overwhelming. And then I had a match with Bob Bradley, which, of course, it was a TV jobber. Greg, was a nice man, nice guy. And then we worked out the match, talked about it, and then I was at the gorilla position. The gorilla was there. Asked me what my name was. I told him it was the Acadian Giant, which was in the Maritimes. And then he was kind of grumpy because he was busy. Of course, he didn't want to screw around. He had a headphone, and everything had to be on time. And he didn't want to screw around with me. And so he said, you're Cajun giant. So he just basically baptized me as a Cajun giant. Whereas I guess Cajuns are a long lost cousin from Louisiana, from Acadians, but still, I didn't care. And it was intimidating. You can hear the crowd from the curtains. And then when they announced my cue to go, I opened the curtain. They started to boo. They booed right away because basically, said, who is that? I had a lumberjack outfit, and I didn't get over with them. They booed me like nobody's business. So that was kind of intimidating because I wasn't used to 7,000 people booing me. But I concentrated, went in the ring, did my match with him. With Bradley, I went over, did a sidewalk slam as a finish. And then after the match, the agents, I think Tony Gurria was one of them. They did good, but need improvements. So you notice I was still green. So that was a bit disappointing. Great experience, be there, but that's not what I wanted to hear. And I think that's what I expected them to hear, I suppose. So I thought it was my last chance, my only opportunity to be with them. So that was a tough try to thing to process. But of course, I did have a second chance with them years later.
Do you remember what the pay would have been in those days for having a tryout match like that?
Oh, maybe $250. 250, I think, if I remember right. I remember they had a payroll. It was very impressive. The machine, the whole machine of it all. I've never seen anything like it. I'm used to the small arenas, backstage, independent wrestling. Then you go to the WWF, it's the big time. And then I remember a guy was sitting at the table giving up money, cash, to the boys. And he said, okay, I'll be in the lineup as well. And he gave me money. He put my name down, and I think that was $250, I think. I'm not sure, but I was happy. But it was a great experience, but it wasn't that the way I wanted it to be, but still,
it was harder to get in those days too, because there was so much talent. Now they would have taken you and put you in the performance center.
Absolutely, which at the time they didn't. I mean, their way is they had those independent wrestling. I'm trying to think. Farm teams, which later on, when I got the call back to try out for them again, that's what they put me up in the USWA Memphis. It was one of their farm teams at the time, under Jerry Lawler, and that was a good way for us to get experience wrestling in small arenas, small national armories or gymnasiums every day throughout the South, and to get seasoned, and then when we were ready, that's where we got the call. But I can talk about it a bit more.
I wanted to just ask you about your Japan career in Wing first. Did you end up getting the Ribera jacket when you wrestled over in Japan? And how was that experience? I think it was Victor Quiones running that federation.
That's right. How I got to Japan? Well, it started when I befriended a wrestler from the Maritimes. He's originally from Winnipeg. He's a seasoned wrestler. He was Bad Boy 80 Watts. And he wrestled all over the world, mostly in Puerto Rico, Japan, Mexico. And it was a heel, mostly a heel when it was in the Maritimes. Great, solid, small stature guy, but very tough. And great wrestler, great work ethic. It's fun to watch him work, Believable whatever he was doing. And then when he saw me that he could make money with me, to bringing me to Mexico. And so he asked me if I wanted to do a tour with him in Mexico. This is back in February of 1993, I think. Yeah. And that was very exciting going to Mexico. I've never been to outside the country, other than the U.S. of course. But I mean, I've never been to Mexico. I was, sure, let's go for it. So they took me. That was a 2-week tour. Pretty of the style wasn't adapting to the whole lucha libre style was a bit different. It's not the psychology was a bit different, and the quality of the air was very thin because your elevated sea level above the sea level is pretty high and you can breathe properly. But great experience nonetheless, and I had Eddie with me. He wanted to speak the language, so I was never alone. And Victor, what was it? It was Victor in Mexico. The Headhunters were there in Mexico. The Headhunters were, of course, managed by Victor Quiñones. And Eddie knew Victor as well. And that's how I got the gig, or I got booked in Japan through going to Mexico. And so first time, they wanted me to go to Japan with Wings, and that was very exciting as well. Japan, I thought in my head, here we go. This is my career is taking off. And so yeah, I've been to Japan. I was in Japan. I think it was it was in the same year, 1983. And Wings, when you get to Wings, it's a hardcore division, so it's a lot of crazy matches, you would see. I remember it was the Leatherface. Was Corporal Kitchener at the time was doing the Leatherface. It was wrestling one of the Japanese guys, and was the bed of nails match. Was the bed of nails surrounding the ring, and he took a bump from the apron, flat bumped on the bed of nails. And I remember when backstage afterwards, and his back was because somebody threw darts at him. I was like, this is freaking crazy. This is insane. I was involved in hardcore matches and gig and stuff and blood all over. And I mean, it's not my style of matches, and I never care about those kind of matches. But it's nonetheless, it's a great learning experience. I learned a lot, and yeah, I enjoyed. And for the jacket, I didn't get it that first trip. I think I got it back a few years later for the UWA, I think. And we've been to Ribera a couple times, but maybe they didn't think I was a big name yet. But I guess I had to do a 2-3 times trip to the Riberas to get a jacket. I don't wanted a jacket, and then I ate like 3-4 steaks. I was competing against Juggernaut, one of the wrestlers from the ECCW from New Westminster in BC.
Yeah, I've actually wrestled him before. He's like a 400 guy.
Yeah, he's very agile for a big guy. And we had some good matches together back in BC. But he wanted a jacket as well, so we kept trying to impress the owner. Eat steak. It's an expensive steak, Kobe steak. So I think half my pay was on that. What's that on that night? But anyway, they were impressed. So they gave us jackets, and I still wear my jacket on occasions. I'm pretty proud. It's like getting a green jacket in golf. For me, it's the same thing. The idea is you made it as a wrestler when you wear that jacket. So I was pretty proud of that. And I think it was my last time I was in Japan, because I had a feeling it would have been my last. It's going to be my last time because you never knew. So I'm happy I did get the jacket and get to experience a little bit of Japan. I mean, mostly you're on the road most of the time, so I not way to greatly enjoyed it, the country, but I had another opportunity to go. I would be more of a tourist than be on the road all the time.
You also wrestled in the UK before WWE. I think your name over there was Giant Goliath or something like that. How was that experience?
Well, I never wrestled. I never worked in the UK as a wrestler. I went to the UK as an actor in England when I filmed Sherlock Holmes, but not as a wrestler. Goliath was mostly the Batanzania as Goliath in Mexico. That was Eddie Watts' idea, because Goliath is biblical from the Bible, of course, and they think the Mexicans could relate to that because they're mostly very religious people, Catholics. So thinking Goliath, they would recognize Goliath. So that was mostly Goliath in Mexico and Japan as well. But I was also Kurrgan. My last trip with them, my last tour in Japan was Kurrgan, because this is after the WWF.
Victor Murphy wants to know, how did the WWE reach out to you when you were finally hired by them? You mentioned earlier you started with USWA. Would that have been Bruce Pritchard working in talent relations at the time?
He was at the time, yeah, and Jim Ross as well. How I got started, again, I got the call from Leo Burke. It was November, October of 1996. And I wasn't wrestling. Wrestling was not going much that law in the Maritimes, so I was being a bouncer, a doorman, and I got the call from Leo out of the blue and asking me he told me that Bret Hart was interested of meeting with me. I was like, really? That was, all the calls I had. This is the most important call I ever had. This is the call you want to hear, really. And yeah, he wanted to meet with me. He was interested in meeting me because Leo was an assistant trainer to Bret. He was training young guys at Bret's home for the WWF. And then Leo, told Bret about me, and Bret was interested. And then I thought, all right, yeah, here we go. This is another good opportunity. I couldn't say no to. And so they flew me down to Calgary. First of all, before I went to Calgary, I had a layover in Toronto, and I set up a meeting with Carl DeMarco, who's also the Canadian president of WWF, based out of Toronto. And the first time I met him, we had dinner at the airport, I think, and then basically stuff asking me about me. I think it was wanted more information on my bio about me, what it was like, and then let Bret know before I got there, I guess. Mostly how to save money. They're telling me the rules when you were a WWF wrestler, to save money, and it's important that you tan, and then just train or work out, stuff like that, basic stuff you need to know. And then went to Calgary, and I went to Bret's house. The first time I met Leo, well, the first time I seen Leo. It's been a few years since I've seen him, but I saw Leo. And then we went to Bret's house, and the first time I met Bret at the door. I think he just woke up. He came back from a tour. He slept all day, but nice. I mean, great impression. With Bret, nice guy, nice man. And I spent 4 weeks. Had a ring set up over his indoor pool, and I stayed at his sister-in-law's place, the ex of Dynamite Kid, Michelle. And every day I would go for a few hours to train basic stuff that I learned already, but Leo was doing the training with me, which was great because Leo, is a good friend, good mentor. And 4 weeks, and then Bret was impressed. Bret was impressed with my abilities, and then I think he called Vince about it. And then I went back home. This is a Christmas break, so I went back home for Christmas break. And then in January or February, they flew me down to Stamford, Connecticut, which of course is the headquarters of where Vince's office is, and that's where I met my partners, my future partners at the Trump Commission. I met Robin Smith, who plays the Commandant, Mike Halleck, of course, Tank, and Barry Buchanan. And I just spent 2 weeks at the studio facility where they had a ring set up. Basically how to work together as a team, double team, stuff like that. And then after that, and it's the first time I met Vince for the first time. This is intimidating. The big boss is the only thing that I remember. I mean, one of the things I remember about it that he was very impressed about my face. He loved my face, my facial expression I could do. So that was a good thing. And then they sent us down to this. Where they sent us down to Memphis to get some more seasoning, more training. Now, of course, they didn't say we're going to be there for 4 months, maybe a month. All right. And then, of course, it kind of extended from there, a month to 2 months to 3 months to 4. And there was no guarantee we were going to get picked up. So it was very stressful. I know it's the only way to get in. It was the only way, the opportunity to get in, but there's no guarantee that they could have let us go at any time. They just want to see our progress. They send the agents down, Pat Patterson down a couple times to see how we were doing. I was still trying to learn how to work as a big guy, trying to understand my gimmick, my role, and trying to get over. And there's some matches I did was great, had some great moments, and some, needed to be improved, But and then at the end of 4 months, there was a bit of a power struggle between Jim Ross and Pritchard. Pritchard, I don't think he cared for us. He wanted guys like Shawn Michaels, established names, not fans of new people, new faces, I guess. He wasn't a fan of us for some reason. But Jim was a good supporter, and Brett was a great supporter as well. Brett was still high up in he was very well respected in Vince's ear at the time. So it was a power struggle between us, and at the end of 4 months, they decided not to continue with the Truth Commission. It was a pretty big disappointment, So they went back home. This was 4 months where I had no internet access, no internet at all. And of course, didn't see my fiance. We were about to get married. But basically, when I got home, I got married the next day. So my wife was preparing the wedding. So it was 4 months away from home, from family. It was tough. But so I was pretty happy to get back home. But it disappointed me because you spent 4 months of great experience, but it didn't really get you open the door in the WWF. But I was in the middle of my honeymoon. I got the call and then Bruce Pritchard called, asking if they were still interested in us. They changed their minds. So they give us another chance, a last chance to impress them, I guess. And so they flew us down I had to cut my honeymoon short, go back home to get ready. There was a TV taping in Detroit, Michigan, and was filming Monday Night Raw. And we had a dark match booked. And so we flew to Detroit. It was a 6-man tag. We were wrestling against jobbers, but one of them was Rhino, before it became Rhino. And it was good. I mean, it was a nerve-wracking wrestling. Finally, this is the only do or die moment. And we came out, we did what I was supposed to do, what my team was supposed to do. We knew what we were doing. Did the match, got over. Afterwards, they were happy. What I heard, they were happy with the match. They weren't happy with Mike Halleck. Mike Halleck had some heat with the office because he was a mentor years ago, and he had some bit of a heat thing at the time with the office. So he was already in thin ice. So they replaced him with, they brought in Luc Poirier from Quebec City. Luc Poirier is a veteran wrestler. Most of his career out of Germany is Rambo. And Mike was very hard to get along to. We didn't mesh personality-wise. So it was very hard when I was with Mike. Very negative sometimes. But when we brought in Luke, totally changed the atmosphere. We gelled right away. He's French, talk French. Nice man, nice guy, easygoing. And that's where we signed our contract for the first time. It was a 2-year, third-year optional, and that was great, great period, great moment. It's very exciting to start my career finally. You know.
The wheelchair gamer has a question that I'm thinking myself, why did they switch managers from the Commandant to the Jackal? Because it really didn't make much sense at the time that you guys are military and you're going from the military leader to this guy in a leather jacket.
Yeah. Well, Commandant, Robin Smith, originally from South Africa, he kind of originated the idea of the Truth Commission. Because the militia right-wing group, and he pitched it to Brett when Brett was there in South Africa doing the tour, and that's how it got started. The thing with Robin, he's an actor. He's a professional actor, great voice, he's a great voice actor. He can play he can be a great villain. He usually plays villains. He has a great face, great voice, very commanding voice. Funny guy too. It's a funny character, but he's not trained as a professional wrestler. And of course, what happens when you're a manager in pro wrestling? You have to take bumps, right? So, and when he would take bumps, he would hurt himself. He wouldn't know how to take bumps. He wasn't a stuntman. He was just an actor. And he would take bumps off the apron, and he would hurt himself. Like, not seriously, bumps and bruises, but hunting on his elbow and stuff like that. So he was kind of a liability, I guess. Afraid that the office was, I think the office was afraid was going to get hurt seriously, and then would kind of screw up the whole Truth Commission thing. Because he was our voice. And I heard, also as well, he was calling the office every day, bugging them about visas and stuff like that. And I think it was becoming a nuisance to the office. So there was accumulating, and to a point where they let him go. So which, we were only 3 months into it when we started with the WWF in the U.S. The whole time in Memphis, and then we got 2 months in during WWF tapings, and then been let go. It was like, my God, we spent so much time with him, and it was not a good day when we heard the news. And then we heard that he was going to get replaced. They brought in Don Callis, which I never heard of. Don Callis mostly, known as an independent wrestler, and from Winnipeg. But when they brought in Don, yeah, you're right. He changed the whole dynamic of the group. At first, he was the first few days or few weeks, he was dressed up as the same gear as us, green and the same colors with red berets. Didn't really look the part as a commander to command the big guys, because we're twice the size of him. But Callis is a smart guy, very intelligent guy, and he decided to convince the writers, I guess, the agents, that it could be a different leader, kind of a cult leader, kind of the same vein as the David Koresh out of Waco. So he tried that kind of role, and that kind of makes sense, to kind of brainwashing us, mind controlling us, especially me. That's how the idea got started from there. But it didn't last long. With the team, because we did the Survivor Series together. That's what they pushed me as a sole survivor of the match against the DOA in Montreal. But the idea was to separate me. They think that time of the Truth Commission was done, and they moved on with me and separated with Brett. To use Luke and Barry as a tag team and me as a single, to push me as a heel monster to work against the Taker, the Undertaker. And that was the idea. So I was the interrogator, which was not a good proper name, so they to start as a single guy. So that's how they baptized me as Kurrgan. and I had Don Whitney. That's his the Jackal, of course. That's this David Koresh type of leader that would be one of the followers, and he was just slapping the shit on me every time he would use during the match after I got a hold of the claw. The claw was his idea, because the claw had never been used before in a long time. So to think the claw would have got over, which it kind of did. So easy. Claw, you can do it to anybody, any size, really. Didn't matter. So claw would work, it would get over. So, but yeah, that's how we became kind of this, Kurrgan and Jackal.
When you were at Survivor Series 1997, was it awkward for you, the whole Montreal screw job, since Brett had brought you into the company? I know a lot of people no-showed the next night in Ottawa out of respect for Brett, but you were not at a point in your career where you could actually do that and not get a ton of heat. So what was going through your head during all that?
I was, yeah, you're right. I mean, that weekend was something else. First time I heard Brett was leaving the company was 2 days before the Survivor Series. This blew me away, blew everybody else away. It was like, we were completely shocked. We had no idea about the backstory, what was going on. And so going to WCW, my God, And Brett was a mentor. He was a supporter of us, and we're going to lose Brett. I mean, Brett helped me a lot to get in. So yeah, it's tough to digest that. And then we did our match Sunday night, Survivor Series. We did our match, and we decided to stay after our match to watch the main event with Sean and Brett, just because it was Brett's last match, and I think it was important for me or for us to be there. So we stuck around watching in the backstage in the monitors, me and Barry, and we saw. It was an intense match. I remember, Vince was in ringside, so I knew how important or big that was. It was a big deal, and it was pretty intense. It was a lot of very physical match, and then it came to the end of the match, which we knew it wasn't part of the match. It was something was going on. You can see the facial reactions of Brett, Vince, and Sean. It was not supposed to happen. And I remember I looked at Barry, and Barry looked at me, and went, yeah, okay, let's get out of here. We're trying to get out of there before the shit hit the fan, because I knew it was a bad thing that happened, not a good thing. So we went to our dressing room to get our bag, our gear. Now, of course, in the dressing room, we shared it with Brett and Sean, shared the same dressing room. But when we got there, the agents, Jerry Briscoe, told us to stay because they had it's known fact that Brett and Sean had heat, and they had a bit of a scuffle a few months before backstage. So in case something happens after the aftermath of the screw job, there was going to be a fight. They wanted us to stay to break up the fight. And it was like, great, get me involved, get us involved between Brett and Sean. Brett, who supported us and helped us to stop him from beating the shit out of Sean. That's wonderful, sure. But we didn't have yeah, you're right, we didn't have a choice. So we stayed, we stuck around. Sean came in first. Now, I'm sure you saw Wrestling with Shadows in the documentary. That footage is shown backstage, and we were pretty much behind the camera. We were of the camera, the filmmakers, and so we were behind them. So what you saw on that footage with Sean, and when Brett asked Sean if he had anything to do with it, well, we were there, and it was. Sean came first. He was crying or bitching. He had nothing to do with it. Which of course, he did. No way. He admitted it years later. But Brett came in afterwards, after he destroyed the ringside tables and monitors. He came in very calm. You can see he was pissed off. Didn't say much. sat down in his corner, and that's where he asked Sean, and Sean denied it. And then Brett went into the showers, and that's where uh, Vince came in, or I remember Shane coming in, and all the agents coming in the dressing room. I think that's where the Undertaker convinced Vince to come out of hiding to face Brett, and so that's where they told us to leave. Some of us to leave, which we were very happy to do. We didn't want to stick around, So we basically, when they give us the green light, okay, we fucked off and went to our cars. And I remember we're trying to look. This is a major place in Bell Center, trying to figure out where the garage is for a car. And I do remember having a memory of seeing Vince and his entourage walking by us. And Vince looking like he was punch drunk. It was kind of weird. All right, didn't really think much about it. And then we drove to the hotel, the airport, near the airport, went to the lounge where most rest of the boys were, and that's where they told us that incident where Brett knocked them out. So it was like we couldn't believe what we were hearing. It was just like very, And I wasn't. You're right. I was just a new guy. I wasn't established. Some boys made up their minds. Like David Boy and Volk wanted to jump ship and be with Brett. That was not my plans for sure. It was a bit uncertainty what would happen to us because we lost our supporter. The aftermath, our future, I guess. And it was going to be weird because it's a very controversial decision with Vince, and I didn't agree with it, of course, but I didn't want to quit my job. I worked so hard to get there. So,
Exercise in Freedom says that Bruce Pritchard said on his podcast that Vince saw your wife and you dancing at a party, and that's where he came up with the idea of you being with the Oddities doing the dance. Is that true? And what is your thoughts on the Oddities characters that group you were part of?
It is true. It is true. I brought my wife to it. It was a WrestleMania after party. It was a WrestleMania 14 with Mike Tyson as his referee. It was with Michaels and Steve Austin, Boston. And that's where you can bring your wives for the weekend. So I brought my wife down, Laura, and so they had the WrestleMania after party after the event, and they had music on stuff. And my wife loves to dance, but she doesn't. But doesn't want to dance alone. I usually dance with her at home, local, weddings and stuff. That would, I would dance with her because she loves to dance with somebody, and so. And I thought it was no issue at all. It wasn't a big deal. That when I noticed though, there was mostly women on the dance floor dancing, not the boys. The boys would stay at their table. But I thought, all right. When my wife wanted to dance, I said, all right, sure. So I went on the dance floor and started dancing. And I noticed some of the boys were looking at me funny, and it was kind of funny seeing a dancing giant, I guess. But that was it, So I did the party, and then days or weeks. Now, at the time, they couldn't figure out what to do with me. I was kind of in limbo. This is after my push with the Kurrgan and Jackal didn't really go far as the direction they wanted to be. So they couldn't figure out what to do with me. They put me with the Oddities. Now the Oddities at the time was with Jackal, so it was still a heel faction. They brought in John Tenta. That's where I first met John and Luna, and of course Silva, Giant Silva, and It was kind of a heel team, I guess. But I was with them, but they couldn't figure out what really to do with me. And then you're right. I think that what Vince uh, saw me dancing. He couldn't get it out of his mind for days or weeks. The dancing giant. Saw me another aspect of my personality. so I got the call at home. Vince, the writer, Vince Russo, calls me at home, which he never did before. And my wife basically said, Vince is on the phone. And I was like, of course, who else would I think would be Vince, right? So the boss. So my God, Vince never calls either. So I was like, what the hell's going on? So I answered the phone, and of course it was Russo. And then he started pitching me the idea of the whole dancing oddities, fun-loving group, partying and want to have a good time, bunch of freaks, and then and when he was doing it, pinching, I remember it was like, what the fuck is he talking about? I was going to say no, but it would be foolish for me to say no, because if I would have said no, they weren't going to let me go for sure. So I said yes, but really I was saying no. So yeah, and then how they introduced the oddities was basically to TV taping within San Diego, and that's where the whole, I had to sing Miss America. There she is, Miss America, and Pat Patterson basically all day trying to help me how to project it, how to act, to sing, help me to sing and be outgoing from the ramp, from the gorilla position to the ring. We rehearsed it. I had like a few hours to learn the lines. It was like, sing in front of 1,000 people or millions of people on TV. It was like a lot to process. Wearing tuxedos, Nina Giant, and it was out of my character for sure, because it was known as Kurrgan, of course, as the monster, and now all of a sudden he's a fun-loving guy, giant. Didn't know how to process that at all. But we got over though. First match, first thing when we got introduced, sang it in front of a crowd, and it got over. It was funny. And then we got more bookings out of it, and we got a SummerSlam gig out of it as well, pay-per-views. And we got over it. We had great music too, with ICP. Even though they were hard guys to work with, great music, great intro. Over time they put Sable with us. But Sable was over like $1 million at the time, and then they put Sable with us. This has helped us a lot. We got the rub. But yeah, that's how I got started. Dancing.
There's a bunch of people that want to know your thoughts on working with ICP, some more details, and also John Tenta, who sadly passed away. I saw you actually wrestle John Tenta in Montreal on a show you did for Jacques Rougeau. I think it was in the late 90s, and that was one of the last time you wrestled, I think.
Well, you know what? It's the last time I saw John. Yeah, it was. He turned on me. Jacques wanted something that he would. Did I turn on him or turn on me? I forget. I think he turned on me. He gave me the big ass bump there at the end of the match, and it's the last time I saw John. It was, I think, the year 2000, 2002, 2001. So last time I saw him live, really, I didn't know he was sick until he passed away. So, and no, John was great. It's a big teddy bear of a guy. He had a big smile. He can get quickly tempered. He can get pissed off pretty quickly. And it's like a volcano erupting. It was something else. I remember. He was into the whole oddities thing, the mask, the whole Cartman. I think was one of his ideas, bringing Cartman, and that got over big time for sure. And he wanted to work. We watched the Steve Martins and Dan Aykroyd, the Wild and Crazy Guys videotapes. And, we rented it at a Blockbuster somewhere in Los Angeles, and we watched it on a VCR in the hotel, trying to get into our characters, So he was really into the whole thing. But no, it was great, he was a driving buddy. And I learned a lot from John. He's a great experience, of course, a veteran. He's been through a lot. A great career. Started with wrestling with Hulk Hogan. I remember we were supposed to work with Too Cool, which was Brian Christopher and Scott Taylor. And we were kind of married with them for a little while. But great guys to work with. It was a comedy match. It usually would be the first match of the card on house shows. But this time was a TV taping. And then, of course, when we found out we were going to work together, we were all gathered together to talk about our matches, how to construct a match. And Christopher, it was kind of a bit of an arrogance sometimes. It was like that in Memphis, my experience with him, because he was the top guy, so he was kind of full of himself. But then started to talk about a match, and he didn't give me some spots to do, give Scott some spots to do. And when it came to John wanted to do some stuff, and then he ignored John. Basically, we'll figure it out in the ring. Something like that. It was pissed off John big time. Very disrespectful. Because John, like I said, John is a veteran. He wrestled Hogan in the main event. It wasn't a nobody, and so John took it to heart, pissed him off, and he got pissed off right away. He wanted to basically showed everybody, all the boys in the back, that he was not happy that Christopher pissed him off. And Christopher was afraid, was scared shitless. Even Taylor too was scared because he was associated with Christopher. He thought he was going to get hurt too. And then even Jim Ross went up to Christopher asking him, "What did you do? What did you do?" Sorry about that, the dogs. What did you do to piss him off? Anyways, so I didn't know what to do either. Basically, let John do what he wants to do, to get his respect back. So when it came to the match, I had some spots to do. That basically John tagged me out, and John took over. I just was in ringside, just watching him go. He didn't hurt Christopher. Of course, he's a professional, but he didn't give him anything at all. Didn't give him anything to shine. Basically, John took over, and that was it. Slams, clothesline, elbow drop, leg drop, whatever. Basically, a glorified squash match. So, but it was a curtain sellout. All the boys were watching in the back. So yeah, John can be, he's a great guy, honest guy, but he's not afraid to show if it's upset with you and mad with you, he'll let you know. And that was pretty cool. And ICP, well, like I said, great guys, give us good music. They were over big time, but they were hard to work with because we were supposed to have this pay-per-view Rock Bottom in Vancouver, because the ICP turned on us and it's aligned with the head shrinkers and Monday Night Raw, and then so that was a kind of our big match, working or get our revenge, beating up the ICP, but then ICP decided to quit, not to be part of the pay-per-view because they would look bad to get beat up by us. Their management weren't happy with that, so they decided to quit. So basically, it became it's not just another match. We had shrinkers and oddities. It was a really special match. The whole build-up to it didn't lead to anything at all. So that kind of pissed us off. But it's what it is.
I know you were wrestling for Jacques Rougeau in recent years here and there. Would you consider yourself retired now, or would you still come back in there if WWE or AEW made you the right offer, because you still look like you're in top shape?
I would say so. I think, I always have a match in my head, or one last match I like to do. My mind says that, and my body says maybe that's not a good idea. No, I am in my age in good shape. My cardio has never been up better than it was before. I run almost every day. But the wrestling, yeah, I don't know. I was always a careful guy, careful wrestler. I was never a high flyer, and I was always cautious. And then over the years, I was afraid to get hurt. Even though you do get hurt, I got bumps and bruises along the way, but I never cared for that to get hurt. Especially if I started to wrestle, do another go around, come back. I'm 51 years old. No, I'm not 20 or 30 years old. So it takes if you hurt, basically, if you hurt yourself, it takes a lot to recuperate. And I can't afford to hurt myself, especially with the careers I'm doing. My other career, acting career, and my other career at the corrections. Uh, it's I don't. I think I proved enough. I think I proved myself, or I went as far as I could. I went as far as I could with it. I did the best that I could with my abilities, and I was very lucky, very fortunate. Different great opportunities out of wrestling that brought me into the acting. Wrestling, like I said earlier, held my imagination. Uh, it really doesn't anymore because I don't follow wrestling. I don't follow the new, Monday Night Raw, all the new wrestlers and stuff. If there's a baseball game during Raw, I'll watch a baseball game like that. It doesn't hold me like it did. I'm still a fan of it, mostly watching older matches from the 80s and 80s, the time I was there and the time before I was there, or before that, or, I'm still a fan of storytelling, great matches. I like to hear the crowd. It was tough to watch wrestling when I did have a chance to watch wrestling when there was no crowd, mostly TV monitors, like or George Orwell thing going on, bizarre. But I understood they still had to do matches during the COVID thing, but it didn't interested me at all. And I lost, like I said, I don't have the passion for it anymore to do another career. Maybe one or two matches. I I am I, in the past I was invited to go to be part of shows like independent shows out of Moncton, just to show up, make the save at the end of a match, do a double choke slam, and do a little dance and get the crowd up, get a good pop out of it, and get a pay out of it, and without putting my wrestling boots on. So yeah, that's. I mean, if they would offer me money, WWF, I doubt it. I don't think they will, so I'm not holding my breath for that.
Now, of course, you worked with Robert Downey Jr. in acting for Sherlock Holmes. You were in 300. How did you transition from a wrestler to a professional actor? And obviously, you've been in some huge movies, so it's pretty impressive the transition that you did make.
Well, it really started with Rougeau, in a way. Started with 300, and 300, big Hollywood blockbuster, was shot in Montreal. Studio in Montreal. And they wanted uh, somebody, a big guy, who can do his own stunts, like a stunt actor, to play this big fight scene in the movie. Uh, Against Leonidas, the hero. And so they were scouting for big guys. And they went to Rougeau first with the local stunt guys uh, for the film. They knew Rougeau out of Montreal. So they went to see his school, went to see Rougeau, because they thought a wrestler would be a perfect fit. Big guy can do his own fights. So they brought him a couple guys, big guys, to audition for it. Didn't work out. And then Rougeau added my name to it. And I remember getting a call, called my home, and I left a message. And when I heard the message, they didn't say what the movie was. They said it was a film. They were doing a filming in Montreal, a movie, and they were interested with to be a part of it in the fight scene, in the sword fight or something like that, battle. And that didn't really capture my imagination on the message. Movie in Montreal was, you know, it didn't say what kind of movie, what studio it was and stuff. So I thought it would be a low budget movie. Wasn't. I was working on my job. I had a full time job as a machine operator, manufacturing plant. So was it worth taking the time off to do an indie film in Montreal? And I kind of ignored the message. And then after a while, Rougeau finally called. And this kid, Rougeau said, "Rob, you should call them back. It's Warner Brothers." And of course, those two words, Warner Brothers. I know how big they obviously Warner Brothers is Hollywood, big studio name. I said, "My God, really?" So I called them back, and they were still interested in me. And that was so they flew me down for one day to Montreal to see me, and also if they, it's kind of an audition to see if I was capable of doing the sword fights and all that stuff. And they like they offered me a role at the end of the day. Very exciting. It was on the set of the Spartan Village, and seeing all the stunt guys, all well trained and trained as Spartan warriors. It was pretty impressive. And then, yeah, they offered me the role. Had to take time off from my full time job for like a month. And it was with my boss, you know, basically told me was happy for me to take the time off. So he understood how big this movie was for me. So it's a great opportunity again. So I rehearsing with them in Montreal, rehearsing the fight and all that. Then did the filming. The process was the makeup was 4 or 5 hours of makeup. It was always the earliest one on the casting call, on the call sheet. Had to be early because of the makeup. But it was a great experience working with Gerald Butler. It was fun. It was a lot of it was pretty fun. And then waited a whole year before the movie came out. And when it did come out, the movie became huge. I had a good feeling that I saw myself in the trailer a couple of times, so I knew I was going to be in the movie. They didn't cut me out. So, and then that was great. It was kind of a redemption for me because the way it worked out with the WWE, the way jobbing us out really, was glorified clowns or jobbers for the oddities, and that's not the way I wanted. It released me right after 2 years. Excuse me. So this is kind of my, in a way, redemption, where I was part of a Hollywood movie, big box office hit around the world. Again, being a monster, not Kurrgan, but uber immortal. So I was very proud to be associated with 300. And then that kind of led to Sherlock Holmes, because of course it was made by Warner Brothers, made by the same studio, and a casting agent from UK knew me as a WWF wrestler, and he found my name in the database in Warner's, and puppy dogs, and that's how I got a call or emailed me asking me if I would be available to be part of Sherlock Holmes, which I heard of in the news before. They cast Robert Downey, his big comeback in Iron Man. His next big movie was going to be Sherlock Holmes. He cast Jude Law, Richard McAdams, big names. And then, so when I heard when they asked me if it was, available for Holmes, it was like pretty exciting. And then they wanted me to, if I could run, stuff like that, to put myself on tape. Anyways, I got the role at the end. It wasn't much of an audition. It was just basically how I looked. There was no. I remember we had no lines or stuff for audition. Mostly my physical stuff that they liked, I guess. And that's how I got. They flew me down to England for 2 months, and it's great. It was fun working with Robert Downey. Great guy, funny man, very smart. It was pretty surreal working with him. It was pretty. his work process, how we get into character, And then I was England, I was in London to give me an apartment to live and mostly do sightseeing and then filming. And it was a great experience. And then that movie took off, of course. It was a huge hit. And for me, it was great because unlike 300 was covered in latex and makeup. But in Holmes, I wasn't, a little bit of scar here and there, but you could see me. So for me, it was a good thing because that's where you get a good exposure from that. So it really opened the doors.
How was the fight scene with him? Because I'm sure you were maybe a bit nervous about hurting a star like that, or was it a stunt double you were working with?
Sometimes I would work with a stunt double, dangerous stuff, like throwing her across the table, across a room. That was a stunt double. Mostly it was with him, hand-to-hand stuff, because he's a very capable guy in martial arts. So he was capable of doing stuff like that with me. There was an incident because that I'm known for now, but during this shipyard scene under the ship, and we did a sequence. Mostly we rehearsed it with the stunt double, days before. When we got to set, the fight would change a lot, which normally does. That Guy Ritchie director wanted to cut out some fights, and Downey had some other ideas. So the fight would change a bit, the choreography. But so it's great, but you don't have a window opportunity to rehearse, a lot. So incidents would, an accident could happen, mistakes could happen. Which they did, I remember I was going for a punch towards his face, and he was supposed to block it. Block my punch and push it down where I hit him on the chest, and then he would fall back over barrels. So we rehearsed it a couple times, and then we filmed it a couple times too, as well. But when we came to another take of it, and another take on that sequence, he forgot to block for whatever reasons, which happens. They forgot to block. But in my mind, I couldn't fake it. I couldn't. My punch was already going. I couldn't stop it in time. But blocking it was be at the last second. So so I kept going, and he forgot to put his hands up. So I hit him right in the chin, and I felt it. I knew I hurt him. I felt his chin, and it was not a good feeling. He fell, and then he was on his stomach, and the crew thought he was acting part of the fight, but he was dragging himself, and I saw blood coming out of his mouth, and I was chasing him, basically asking him, "Are you okay? I'm sorry. Are you okay?" So everything was fine. He just cut his bottom of his lip. There were, and then what saved me, it wasn't caught on the big cameras. It was caught on a camcorder his trainer had. The fight choreographer, he taped it taped it where you can see the punch, and basically got me off the hook. It was just an accident. So I thought I was going to lose my job. I can't get out of it. But put some ice. You were a little afraid about the swelling, so put some ice, stop the bleeding, and then they continued with the fight. Rest of the night, they took him to the hospital afterwards and got some stitches, 5-6 stitches. I felt terrible. Felt bad. Not that to hurt anybody. It's not known to hurt anybody. Accidents do happen. I did hurt people in the ring, not on purpose. But so the next day, I was in the makeup trailer, putting makeup, and then he comes in. Without saying a word, I was going to say good morning, but he comes in and put a box of a gift box on my table, and he screws off. All right, okay, whatever. So I opened the box. It was a nice bottle of champagne and a card. You can basically personally wrote in saying everything else all right, everything's cool. Let's finish the rest of filming this week and blah blah blah. Basically to encourage me or to lift me up. I knew I felt bad, so it was a nice, very classy thing for him to do. So, but it went viral. It hit Entertainment Tonight in the States and Canada. And basically, the title was Iron Man gets knocked out by extra. This is kind of insulting because an extra doesn't. All background actors. They don't have physical. They don't interact with the actors. Stunt guy will be. I'm always okay with 300-pound stunt guy. Which technically I was, I suppose, but not an extra. But it was good. Good publicity. It was great publicity for him, for the movie, and for me. I was mentioned in the Late Show, David Letterman. I did some interviews. Warner Brothers flew me and my family to Montreal, put us in the penthouse the week before the movie's release. Did like 20 interviews. Mostly the first questions about that incident. So at the end, that was a good thing. Also, nobody got really, really hurt. So that's what mattered. Downey continues with his career, so he's fine.
Yeah, his career has been doing just fine since then.
Yeah, I didn't really do any damage about that one.
Last question here, because you've been really generous with your time. A lot of fans have been asking how you got along with The Undertaker, and if you're disappointed there was never that big feud of you versus The Undertaker that you mentioned there was talk about at one point.
Yeah. Well, I always looked up to him, even before I started the WWF, of course. I started my career in Maritimes in 1990. And the same year he started with as the Undertaker. And I've been following his career before as me, Mark Callis in WCW. Like I said, I was digesting, I was wrestling left and right. I was a bigger fan. I think I was a bigger fan of the NWA before WCW, because in my mind at the time, thought the WWF was cartoon-ish. They had the animals and the gimmicks, but NWA was real pro wrestling. That's how I kind of interpret it. But I remember seeing me, Mark Callis, same size as me, big guy, but you can freaking move. Amazing ability when I saw his name Mark. So I was very impressive. And then when I saw him first time, as everybody else did, as a surprise wrestler in Survivor Series, as the Undertaker, I recognized him right away. It's me, Mark, that brought him in. So I was pretty excited about that because I knew he was going to do interesting things. I knew what he was capable of physically. He was a very impressive guy. So I was always a fan of his over the years. And when they brought me in, in the roster, in the WWF, he was there all the time. He was always the leader of the locker room. So I always respected him, because of that. I was trying. He knew I was going to work with him one day in the future. He wanted to work with me because they were losing. There's not a lot of big guys for Taker to work with. So the idea of working, I think he was happy about that. But, so he was always backstage after my matches. He would, after a day of match or a TV match or squash match, he was come after the match. He was come up to me. He would be at the gorilla position and basically pull me aside and tell me to do this and don't do that. He was happy with this and give me a little bit of advice, which my ears was always open to them. So I always felt great when he was trying to help me. So I mean, I was very grateful for that. Always, like I said, grateful. Very. I always hang out with him when he during the day. He was hanging out with his friends and boys, and I was always go up to him, shake hands with him. And we would go to bars. We would go to me and the Truth Commission would go to the bar, and after the show, he would be there with his group and basically buying us drinks. Very cool cat, And So I was looking forward to working with him, of course. But of course, the direction didn't go the way it was supposed to go. Maybe because I was maybe too green at the time. I don't know. But I remember one day when we were flying into Dayton, it was Dayton, Ohio. Uh, uh, it was TV taping, and then I saw on the list of match on the card, the list of matches, The Undertaker versus Kurrgan, and I got excited. Oh, this is cool. I knew it was not going to be. I knew I was not going to go over, obviously, but because the way we were heading, we were jobbing for the most of everybody. They weren't pushing us. That's fine, which is fine. But I was hoping to get at least a decent match. Two big guys. You think we kind of even it out. You could get Taker over at the end, as he should be. But so I was getting excited, and then when it came to talking about our matches, with the agent Briscoe, I think, and Taker, basically our time was 5 minutes, so including intro. So I knew right away that's not going to be the match I wanted to have. But whatever, I did the best that I could. He wanted, of course, his finish is the tombstone, and he looked at me basically. He knew he didn't want to do the tombstone because I was too tall. Which in my head I was kind of happy, I didn't want to take the tombstone either. But I did mention the choke slam. Well, you can choke slam me, and he didn't think I could do it. He didn't think I could jump for him, which I never took a choke slam before, but I knew I could do it. So okay, choke slam then. A couple spots, flying clothesline, blah blah blah, punches in the corner, throw me in the turnbuckle, and come out and choke slam. I asked. So after I talked to him, I asked. Before the match, I asked all the wrestlers who took choke slams, like Edge, Christian, veterans of taking choke slams, asking them how to do a proper choke slam. So, all that leverages and pushing, timing, all that stuff. So, but when the match was short, but it was very memorable because I was so used to watching the Taker, his intro on TV over the years, his famous ring entrance. And then all of a sudden, I go in the ring first, and then Taker comes out with the lights down, the smoke, and then the bong and the music, and I was like freaking out. I was marking out. It was like, holy Christ! I'm in the ring. I'm not on my living room watching TV. I'm in the ring, and he's going to work with me. It was intimidating. But the match was short. I got up for him though. For the puppies. I hate dogs. I jumped for him big time for the choke slam. I did as much as I could, and I remember I got a good pop out of it when I took the bump. And at the end of it, they destroyed the oddities. They suspended, basically the Ministry of Darkness destroyed the oddities, and that was that. And then after the match, Taker came up to me and said he was happy. Didn't think he was impressed that I could go up for him. So that's why I wanted to leave a good impression. The idea of coming back down the road, not to forget me. Show them that I could work. I can take up on a good bumper. That was the idea. Yeah.
For fans that want to follow you, I know you're on Facebook at your real name, which the fans could look up on your profile here. But is there Instagram, Twitter, or anywhere else they could look you up?
There is, my fan page on my Facebook for sure, and also I am on Instagram under my name that I just started maybe like a few months ago, and I am on Twitter. I don't go too much on Twitter because three social media thing at the same time is kind of too much for me. So I stick to Instagram and Facebook. But you can follow me. I usually post pictures and stuff and news updates and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, thanks again for talking to us and giving such great answers. We didn't even get into many of the fad questions, so maybe down the road you'll come back again. But I really appreciate it, and I'll let you close this off with whatever you want to say to the fans.
Oh, well, I'm very lucky, very happy, that I have fans. I'm very, very fortunate that people have been following my career over the years, from wrestling to acting. And so, yeah, thank you for being there for me. And I'm hoping I'll do more film work and in the future, and more interesting stuff. And I hope you'll be there for me, and keep safe. And just be careful out there. It's a tough world, but hopefully be healthy, and hopefully everybody will be happy. Happiness.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV.